Всем привет! Welcome to my channel and welcome to this video that's going to serve as an introduction to a whole series of tutorials in which I'm going to try to explain the system of the Russian cases to you. And I know the Russian cases can be scary, especially if you're a beginner, but as a teacher, I can say I think cases are not very complex. Now, they're difficult, but they're not very complex. And here's what I mean. The Russian case system is difficult because there is a lot to remember, but the whole system is really a bunch of if-then statements. And then once you get the idea behind the system, the only difficulty is to kind of like commit more and more of these if-then statements to your memory. And in that regard, the case system is much easier than, let's say, verbs of motion or verbal aspect that can be so context dependent, where if-then statements don't work because like it goes more like, well, but did you consider this? With cases, you don't consider it. You just learn that in this specific context, you use this specific case, and for this specific type of the word, you use this set of endings. Now, it's it's more complex than that, but at the same time, don't be afraid of the Russian cases. And I hope that you watch this series of tutorials carefully, taking notes, paying attention, and being kind of like hands-on with your learning, and that at the end of the series of tutorials, you will feel very confident about the Russian cases. So before I tell you what I will teach you in these tutorials, and I will show you the materials that we will be working with, I want to kind of like offer a very quick teacher's perspective on the importance of learning grammar. Because lately I have seen online some discussions where we have two kind of like polarized viewpoints. One, grammar is important. Second one, grammar is not important when you're learning Russian. And it seems to me that the second point of view has become prevalent lately. And in the last couple of days, what I did is I put the hashtag Learn Russian into YouTube search, and I was kind of like checking out all of the tutorials that would pop up, and I filtered it under like recent. And what I noticed that the tutorials, like pretty much all tutorials that appeared in the last several days, at least those that I checked out, were focused on presenting the vocabulary to you, or were providing some kind of a monologue with subtitles, and sometimes even with English translations. And I think these resources are great. My point is there was no grammar tutorials. So, and those discussions that I've read, it seems like the recommendation from kind of like mainstream bloggers is to avoid learning grammar because it sets you up for failure. It's too difficult and has nothing to do with the real language. And then we have teacher voices or tutor voices that say, hey, Russian is the language that you cannot really master without knowing grammar. And to be honest, I belong in the camp of teachers and tutors who believe that Russian grammar is important. At the same time, I think there should be a distinction made about like what kind of learners need grammar. And let me offer a quick metaphor here. So imagine two people who decided to settle in a specific country. And one person looks at the map and they're like, I have no idea where I want to settle. I just know I want to settle in this country. So they rent an RV and they start their journey all over the country, kind of like exploring the places. And the second person is like, hey, this is the part of the country, this is the city, this is the land I want to settle on. I'm set. This is my choice. I can start building my house. So I think the majority of learners that I see online, mostly on Reddit, that learn Russian, they're kind of like, woke up one day and they're like, I want to learn Russian. Or they heard a song or they saw something on social media and they're like, Russian, I want to learn Russian. And they don't really know exactly what they want to learn or why they want to learn it. They just want to explore it. So they're similar to that person with the RV. And that person with the RV does not need grammar. I honestly would say, yes, if you are in that category of the learner who are just exploring, yes, do not go straight for grammar because it's scary, it's difficult, it's just gonna, make you feel like Russian is impossible to learn. Explore, go explore the vocabulary here, go explore the slang there, go explore the Russian YouTubers. I mean, exploration is part of the fun. But once you decide that, yes, this is the language you want to become the lifelong learner for, that's when you have to switch to that second person. And remember, that second person, they know that they want to build a house right here. And when you build a house, you need a foundation, and grammar is that foundation, because you cannot have a bunch of bricks, aka vocabulary, or like random knowledge about the pragmatics of the language, and build something that's gonna hold. You do need the foundation. You do need everything that will hold that structure together. And in the Russian language, that's grammar, and it is important. Now, the person who was traveling in the RV, they know a little bit here, a little bit there, but they don't have this kind of like systematic foundation. So even though they might have traveled for years and they know a little bit of everything everywhere, once they decide to really kind of like learn the Russian language, they have to switch their mindset to this, kind of like foundation and start from scratch with the Russian grammar. At the same time, that person that was building the house all this time, focusing on the foundation, solid foundation, and everything that holds the structure together, I would say this person also sometimes needs to rent an RV and kind of like travel around, learning a little bit of here, a little bit of there. So going away from this very, very structured grammar approach. Okay. I don't know if you like this metaphor or not, or if probably I lost, half of you along the way here, but I believe grammar is important. I believe grammar is a very systematic knowledge that should be learned in a systematic way. And our minds thrive on structure. And of course, I understand there are different kind of like personalities, there are different styles of learning, but we cannot deny that overall structured learning is better. So, and that's what I'm going to offer in this series of tutorials, the structure that will help you understand the Russian cases. So what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to explain to you like the concept of cases, and that's going to be in the next video. So I'm going to try to get the idea across of what cases are, and we are gonna look at some basic contexts for the cases. Now, so here I have the Russian cases and I have 3 contexts for each. In reality, there is a lot more. So in the next couple of videos, I will also teach you how to work with the charts, the chart for nouns, the chart for personal pronouns, the chart for adjectives, and various pronouns, possessive pronouns, and some demonstrative pronouns. Then we're gonna work, there are gonna be a series of shorter tutorials. Maybe not much shorter, but like they're gonna be, kind of like really going through examples. So where we're gonna translate a bunch of sentences into Russian by using the system that I explained before. So, and once you get the idea, so we'll only work with a limited number of contexts. Once you get this idea of what steps you take to go through this structure, after that, there will be a series of tutorials that probably is going to be somewhat boring, but at the same time, I actually don't know if any of that will be exciting. It will be probably pretty boring. Russian grammar learning can be quite boring. But in that other series of tutorials, I will, so as I said here, I explain like 3 contexts for each case, but I'll give you about like 10, 15 more contexts for each case. And as I said before, it's not going to cover all the contexts for each case, but at the same time, it will definitely get you through the elementary and intermediate into high intermediate levels of Russian. So somewhere along the way, I also planned a tutorial where I go into distinction between nouns and adjectives and pronouns, and kind of like helping you figure out which chart to use, because it is important to distinguish these grammar categories, to distinguish between these grammar categories if you really want to properly learn grammar. And finally, there will be a series of tutorials where I focus on one context for each case, and I present some vocabulary and some useful expressions. And after that, we'll basically take it from there, which way you want to go with the cases, but I will be happy to continue, creating tutorials to help you understand it. All right, I'm going to wrap up here by saying that I really hope that my series of tutorials is going to be useful. And I really hope that you will learn a lot from them. And I think to learn a lot from my tutorials, you really have to treat them as a real lesson. So watch them, find time to watch them from the beginning to the end, pause, or take some notes. If I have some kind of a task before you watch the next tutorial, complete the task before you watch the next tutorial. Because learning is really kind of like a work process. You have to put in effort and work to get to the result, and especially learning a language. And I'm here to help you, and I'm very excited about this series. Okay? Пока-пока.